Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode. And I'm absolutely thrilled today because I'm in for a treat, which means you're in for a treat, as we have Johnnie Bernhard to visit with us, a native Texan, a part time hill country person, and a prolific writer. So, Johnny, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Always good to be in the hill country, whether or not if it's virtual or live and in person.
Thank
Always
you so
time well spent.
I couldn't agree more. Could you tell us a little bit about your professional journey as an author? But you got to start about the native Texan part.
Tom, always love about native Texan, my family history, my husband's history, my family, my maiden name, last name Fritz. They came in when Texas was a republic. They came in from Indianola and they settled around Jackson County. They were small cotton farmers, small farmers, and pretty much the family through multiple generations stayed in that area, married into another German family, the Weberneck family. And they also had the same stories as immigrants, German immigrants into Texas. My husband's family, the Bernhards, and there's the old Bernhard locker right there on the Ingram Highway in Kerrville. They came to Texas from Germany through Indianola and went further up into the hill country and were farmers. My husband had a great grandfather that worked as a cattleman on the original Wyo Ranch owned by the Schreiner family. So our Texas roots are deep. We're very proud of them. And just a quick aside, because I think any native Texan would chuckle at this. I was at a book event in Mississippi, and there was a Mississippian author before me. And she said, I did a book event once in San Antonio, and people went on and on about being native Texans, how proud they were of that. And I said, well, I'm a native Texan. We're proud because we were an independent nation. We fought for that freedom. Immigrants from many different parts of the world that created a nation. So that's just a bit of a side, but I'm very proud of the family history, and I incorporate Texas history in all of my novels, which four of them, they're all set in Texas, different parts of Texas.
Let's go through your writing history. You worked and knew a little bit of research for this podcast. It looks like you worked for multiple publications, did some journalism. Could you tell us about that part of your career?
Yeah, happy to, Tom. I knew I always wanted to write. I just loved reading as a child. I had many favorite authors as a child. That was just my thing, reading and writing. And I went into journalism because I had to have a way of making a living, roof over my head and food to eat. So I thought, well, I'll start with journalism, and I loved it. I worked in Houston, and it was a wonderful time to be there. It was during the 80s. I did a lot of feature writing, which are just character sketches. When you look at it, you're writing about a person and you're focusing on that person's life. And from journalism, I got married, started a family, and I didn't want to be at a city council meeting in Memorial or in the Spring Branch district covering ISD and all those things. And I segued into teaching high school English, which I absolutely loved. And when I reflect on all those things in my life, it comes back to that first love of reading and writing. Didn't make a whole lot of money in those fields, but I was very happy. The thing that was so endearing about teaching, from journalism, you're reporting after the fact. It's already happened. You can't change anything. But in teaching, you can affect change. You can help a child learn to read. And I think about the wonderful quote from Lamar, the president of Texas, about education. No one can take that away from you. It is what separates tyranny from freedom. and that's public education. So I enjoyed my time as an English teacher, segued for a while doing newspaper column writing until I got the point in my life where my family didn't need me as much. And I asked my husband and my adult children, I want to do what I've always been talking about. I want to write that book. And that was my first novel, A Good Girl, which is really the family story. It's 5 generations of Texans, beginning with an Irish girl coming into Indianola, escaping the potato famine, and she meets a German boy who is responsible for taking a wagon train full of Germans as they make their way from Indianola to the hill country. And we follow that family through 5 generations, which when you think about it, several world wars, the Vietnam War, the Great Depression. So it's the story of family. It's the story of the immigrant in America. It's the story of father, child, parent, and grandchildren.
Okay. What high school?
Pardon me?
What high school did you teach at?
Oh, I didn't teach in Texas. My husband's a naval architect. His job has been building boats for special forces, and I've lived all over the Gulf of Mexico from Texas to Florida. So I taught in Louisiana and in Florida.
And I went to Marabou B. Lamar Junior High School. So there you go.
Yeah.
So the scope, I have so much I want to visit with you about. Let me start by asking, why is Texas one of the greatest canvases to paint on, even if that painting is words?
For me, I love the immigrant story. I love that you could take people from so many different cultures in the world and they've come here to live a life and to raise their families and to begin businesses. The, the story map is so vast and full. I've always been a lover of Texas history. I'll go back to the 7th grade at San Jacinto Intermediate in Pasadena, Texas. My 7th grade Texas history teacher, she made those stories come alive for me. And at 62, I haven't forgotten its mothers, and I haven't forgotten her classroom and what a fantastic teacher she was.
For those listening to this podcast who unfortunately don't live in the great state of Texas, you should know that we learned Texas history in 7th grade, and we learned Texas history before we learned American history. That's how important Texas history is to our public school education in the great state of Texas. But sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, Tom. All of that history is a springboard if you're a writer. It's an inspiration from a widow woman in Victoria, Texas. Her husband dies, leaves her 6 children to raise, and she's got a small cattle ranch. And for those people outside of Texas, we're not talking about Dallas and the Ewing Ranch. We're talking about short nights and long days of hard physical work and surviving that and becoming successful. There's the story of the Buffalo Soldiers out in West Texas in the Big Bend area and what they did. There's the story of the Comanches. Very interesting to me, Tom, getting back and how important history is. I was able to do in 2021, thanks to the generosity of San Antonio Gemini Inc. It's a national writing center. And I taught for them writing classes, and they were virtual because of COVID. And I enjoyed them. They have programs for vets, children, people over 50. They do great work in helping people tell their story. But because of their generosity, I attended a national conference. We wanted to be in person in New York City and learning how to be a teaching artist. And that's when you take your craft as an author and you teach others about your craft, because I believe everyone has a story to tell. Not just me, not just you, Tom. We are all walking stories of where we came from, who our grandparents were, who we idolized, who hurt us, who began our story from childhood to adulthood. And one of the first lessons I'm tapped in with writers, visual artists, performing artists from all over the country. And the teacher of that session, which was called Owners of the Land versus Conquerors of the Land, she said, do you know who owned the land, who originally owned the land you're sitting upon at this moment? I happened to be at our family place way out 100 miles from the border, west of Kerrville, west of San Antonio, and I knew immediately. I said, the Comanches own this land before I did. And there wasn't another artist that could name the original owner of the land they were sitting upon. Yes, history is very important. How can you not want to write about that? That the only peace agreement between white men and the American Indian is between the German immigrants and the Comanches. It's true. And I write about that in a novel I just submitted to TCU Press. I hope they publish it, but it's called The Witch of Sonora.
You're the first person I've talked to who talks about the craft of writing in educational setting. I was wondering if you could tell us a few words about why you think that is so important and why you're so passionate about teaching the craft of writing, and you're even going to do that in Kerrville this summer.
I am. I'm very excited about that. I just did a Saturday session in Rockport at the Rockport Center of the Arts. And I just had a great class. And gosh, we were there till 10 to about 3 in the afternoon. I believe writing is an art form. It's something I take seriously. I'm a traditional published author. That means I had to be vetted by an agent, by a publishing house. I had to pay my dues. I didn't go into this because I wanted to be famous or because I wanted to make money. I went into this because I care about stories and I care about the craft of storytelling. So I'm fortunate enough to take my love of teaching with my love of writing and offer writing classes at different nonprofits. I've taught in South Carolina at the Pat Conroy Center. I've taught in Louisiana. I've taught all over, and it's wonderful to be able to do this in Texas. So when I meet with folks in Kerrville this summer, and if you're interested, just go to the website of the Kerr County Cultural Arts Center. You'll see a picture of me, Johnnie Bernhard, and it will tell you what we're going to teach or what I'm going to teach and what hopefully you'll learn. Because, as I said earlier, I think everyone has a story to tell. And I think if they're given the correct tools, they can be successful at telling that. I also do some editing on the side, Tom. I've been doing this since 2016. I've worked with an author originally from Paris, whose father was in the French Resistance and has a marvelous story to tell with his father as the hero. That particular author's only goal is to publish it for his family so his father's story doesn't die when he dies. I'm working with a man that Dr. LaSalle, he spent his career in nature and studying botany, and he wants to write a book about conservation. And I'm happy to give him the skills to tell his story. So I love teaching these craft classes. That's my real joy when I can combine all of it.
Let me ask you about your style of writing. So let me start with, are you a morning writer, an afternoon writer, an evening writer? You, when the spirit moves you, writer? Are you a structured writer? How do you sit down and write?
In the beginning, Tom, and that's a great question. In the beginning, I was so raw and so excited that I finally had the time to establish a writing schedule that I get up at 4 in the morning. I'm a morning person. My energy is best then. That I would get up at 4 and I would write and write until I just stopped. There wasn't anything left, and developed a book. This is the good girl. This is the story about the Germans coming to Texas during the Republic and following their path into Jackson County and later on into Kirk County. But what I've learned after 4 novels, it's best to write one good paragraph than to write 1,000 words in one day that you're going to end up editing out. It's best to take your time and make sure that's a perfect sentence or a perfect paragraph. And this comes from Hemingway, not from me, because Hemingway said, one true sentence. That's really what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you're just writing words, that's not what writing is about. There's something in November, National Writing Month, where people try to write as much as they can in one day, and they have a word count to work towards. I've never participated in that. I'm not just writing words. I'm writing a story, and I'm writing this story to inspire a reader. I'm not going to tell that reader what to think. I just want that reader to think and hopefully feel about the story I'm writing.
So, do you see the story play out in your head, and do you record it? Do you explore how characters react? Do sometimes characters do things you weren't expecting? What's that part of your process like?
Very good question. So, with Hannah and Ariella, this is the novel I wrote that came out 22. Thank you, TCU Press. My husband and I would get the Junction paper, and for years, and we'd read the crime report, which is pretty much the same until about 2019, 2020. Crime report was snake in a garage, drunken brawl at the local tavern, cow got out, minor car accident. That changed to human trafficking, automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons found in a city park by the Llano River. And I thought, what is going on? And so the more I began digging, researching, this is where my journalism comes in. The more I found out about human trafficking, drug trafficking along the I-10 corridor.
So I have
So
friends.
once, yes, sir.
Yeah, I have friends who own a hotel in Rock Springs, and that was their experience as well. So as I live near Kerrville, and we don't see as much of that as is reported a little bit west of here, i.e. Junction and Rock Spring. Is that consistent with what you've discovered, or is it perhaps the same everywhere?
What I found in the novel, Hannah and Ariella, I had a storyline, and I can read this to you. Here's my plot. Nola plot in it is in a story. What's this story about? So this is from Deuteronomy. Cursed be anyone who perverts the justice due to the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. So I have my 3 characters for the novel. The traveler, one of the little girls, is fatherless, that is kidnapped, and the widow. That's 73-year-old Hannah, who lives on a remote working ranch outside of Rock Springs. She is originally from Junction. She married a man that had a ranch, working ranch, outside. And through a strange turn of events, these three people are involved or come into contact. When Hannah, a 73-year-old widow, finds the semi-conscious body of a 14-year-old Mexican national in a ditch along a remote Central Texas road, she has no idea someone is watching. Not until the girl's brutal attacker arrives at Hannah's door in the middle of the night, threatening just not the girl's, but Hannah's very survival. Ultimately, the question of justice for a victim of human trafficking and the woman who helps her lies in the hands of a biracial Border Patrol officer and an unconventional small town sheriff. The I-10 corridor of Texas connects saints, demons, and victims as the ultimate question of life and death is decided by two strangers fate has bound together. They must make a hard choice: either follow the law or follow their conscience. So yes, the book was written and done after solid year of research, watching a lot of documentaries. At the time, I did a lot of research with Homeland Security, FBI. At the time, I was living in Mississippi for my husband's job and traveling back and forth. Mississippi is number 3 in the country as far as human and sex trafficking because they have a lot of casinos on the coast. So what I learned, Paul, is that the human trafficking corridor in this country, which is the number 1 crime in this country, is from San Diego to Jacksonville, Florida. And it's much easier to hide your crime in a little bitty town in the middle of nowhere, Texas.
Let's turn to The Witches of Sonora because I believe that's really a sequel to Hannah and Ariella. Could you tell us a little bit about that book and your focus on the fentanyl problem?
Fentanyl is the number 1 drug coming across from the border, poisoning thousands of people, ruining entire communities. And so I did a lot of research on that particular drug. I brought back Hannah because at 73, this Texas girl is just unbelievable. She's strong, she's gutsy, she's independent like many of the women are from Central and West Texas. She has a strong moral code that she doesn't always say what she's going to do. She does it. She's a doer, not a talker. And so I bring back the same sheriff who is from Rock Springs, and I bring in a new border agent. And I'm really excited about this character, Tom. I did a lot of research, and I'm allowed to bring in my love of Texas history and the story of the Comanches. This particular border agent, he had been a Marine in Afghanistan. He's suffering from moral injury, and that's a real word used in Veterans Affairs. It's when a soldier witnesses or does something that in the act of war as a soldier that goes against his moral code. So he's suffering from moral injury. There's a lot inside this young man. He's originally from Bandera. His mother is Mexican American, and his father's ancestry line is part Comanche and Hispanic. So he's a very interesting character, very duty driven, and also haunted by things in his past. He is working with another border agent, and this is a female that's in Del Rio. Both of them uncover a man that is a Caucasian man a lifelong criminal since he was 16, 17 years old from Ocala, Florida, who's been working for different cartels, never caught, a sociopath that eventually gets a very important job for a cartel boss in funneling fentanyl from northern Mexico into a ranch in Del Rio outside of town. So I hope to see this book come to fruition. It is with TCU Press and being vetted at this time.
Jen, could you give us a teaser preview of what you hope to teach when you come down to the KCC in August?
I hope to encourage writers that there is a system in publishing. Okay. And it's the same presentation I gave this past Saturday in Rockport. And this is a true story. There was a gentleman in my class, a retired pharmacist, obviously a very intelligent man who's interested in writing books. And he went with what we used to call a vanity press, or a press that you actually pay and they publish your book. And unfortunately, he spent thousands of dollars and the company voted, and he maybe sold $30 returned. I'm going to try to explain to writers in Kerrville that want to publish, there's many ways to do it. You could be traditionally published, where you have to be vetted by a publisher and agent. You could be self-published. Okay. There are small presses. There are things such as the university presses that are fantastic. Texas has a university press for every state university. They all have different specialities. University of Texas tends to do nonfiction. TCU Press does nonfiction. It's one of the oldest university presses in the country. Children's books. So there's many different ways to have your work published. I'm going to talk to them about how to generate fresh ideas, how to organize their thoughts.
I was looking at the website to see what was on there. I hope I'm in town that weekend.
Oh, I'd love to have you, Tom. It's always great conversations. And something I've really learned in doing this, most of the people I edit for or the folks that come to my classes are working professionals that they have a story to tell, and maybe it's finally that time in their life that they can tell their story. I'm just a teacher that is giving them the tools and the facts of this is how it works. Then you could try this, how to build a platform as an author, and what it takes, the dedication it takes. Just like anything else in life, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So it always makes for a day of great conversation and hearing other people's stories and where they're coming from.
Johnny, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to connect with you or find out more information about your writing, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
Of course, follow me on social media, but if you want more information about what I do and my educational background and what my books are about, if you'll go to the web, Johnnie Bernhard, author.com, and you could see it right on the screen there for you. And that'll give you synopsises about the book. The books can be bought at bookstores. They could be bought directly from tcupress.com. And there's some links on there. And if you want to send me an email about a book idea you have or a question you may have, there's a way to contact me on the website.
Johnny, unfortunately, we are at the end of our time now. This has been a great conversation. I hope we can continue this and maybe revisit when we get a little bit closer to your class here in Kerrville.
I'd enjoy that, Tom. Thank you so much for having me.